Grab your English to Chinese dictionary, flip to the profanity section, put on your brown coat and come with us, because we're doing a Firefly review and ain't nothing in the verse gonna stop us. Welcome to OSD, I'm Scott and today we're taking a look at the Yahtzee Firefly Collector's Edition. Now, we've not done a board game on this show before, but given that Yahtzee doesn't actually have a board, I don't think we still have. Anyway, the point is, this particular game is very heavily themed around Joss Whedon's Firefly, the criminally short-lived but critically acclaimed TV series. Now, Firefly itself was a science fiction show with heavy Western theming. The future in which the show was set was patterned somewhat after post-Civil War America. Unfortunately for the main characters of this show, they'd been on the losing side of that Civil War, and now they existed basically to go from job to job just to keep on flying. Pretty much every member of the Firefly cast has been reasonably well represented in terms of merchandise, be it the upcoming action figures from Funko, or the vinyl pop figures, or other such merchandise. The Firefly class transport ship Serenity, from which both the television series and the spin-off movie derive their names, has received merchandise in the past. There's been Christmas tree ornament, all the way up to high-end replicas from Quantum Mechanics, but there's really not been anything in that sort of mid-price point for most collectors. Until this.
At last, we can retire and give up this life of crime.
USAopoly decided to make a Yahtzee Firefly theme set, with the ship itself as the centerpiece, and you can actually open that up to act as the shaker for, again, Serenity-themed dice. Let's take a look at the packaging. Now, as you can see, we are in an interesting open yet still closed box design. It does have this big cutout of the box, which instead of having a standard window, is actually empty space here. This approach to the box design is quite interesting, and it seems to work quite well with the graphics design that they've got for the box anyway. The Firefly logo is prominently displayed in this bolted-on logo design. The die used in the game itself are displayed above the rear of the ship. They look really nice floating there, especially given the sort of golden hues of the die, which really are reminiscent of the Firefly's engines. The side of the box is fairly standard. Yahtzee logo, Firefly logo, and an ages and players detailing below that. The same design is repeated on both ends. The back of the box continues the rusted and beaten up metal motif of the rest of the packaging and includes a small screw plate with a brief overview of Firefly and how that ties into Yahtzee. The bottom of the box doesn't really contain much other than continuing that same metal motif and a little contents checklist.
This is gonna get pretty interesting.
Define interesting.
Oh God, we're all gonna die?
Out of the box, this is what your set contains. 5 Firefly-themed Yahtzee dice, a Yahtzee Firefly-themed scorecard, complete with Blue Sun logo in there, quite nice, an official Yahtzee pencil to be able to record your scores with, and of course Yahtzee instructions for those of you who don't know how to play Yahtzee, which includes me.
Well, my days of not taking you seriously are certainly coming to a middle.
If you're planning to actually use the set to play Yahtzee, the model of the Serenity does split at the tower section here, with a nice satisfying boop. And you can, in theory, use either the front section or the aft section to be able to hold your dice and roll.
That sounds like something out of science fiction.
You live in a spaceship, dear.
I tend to think the back section is probably more easily used as a dice cup. However, when utilising these specific dice, they really only fit 4 of them rather than all 5. You can of course use the front of the ship, but that just seems awfully awkward to me in terms of getting the die in and out and giving it a decent shake and throwing it around. So I'd personally say that you're probably better off just using the dice in your hand or using a cup of regular variety. The main attraction of the set is of course the dice cup itself, the Serenity. Now we can see here that it is very nicely sculpted and there's a reasonable amount of detail. By no means is this going to be mistaken for the quantum mechanics version of the ship, but it's got enough to endear and does a reasonable job of portraying the ship. The cockpit area is painted black, so you're not going to see a small wash or mal or river or pretty much anyone inside there anytime soon, but it does the job.
Mine is an evil laugh.
The whole ship does have this grey wash over it, which makes her feel a bit dirty and used. Now it is worthy of mention that not all the details are exactly as they are in the show. For instance, the flight pods on the side, the shuttlecraft which Inara uses for example, isn't really terribly well represented here. But for what's a glorified dice cup, it's not too bad. The engine pods are detailed in green, which looks really nice. However, there is no articulation in either the engine pod or the wings, so it's going to make it that much more difficult to throw a bad guy's henchman into them to prove your point.
I will hunt you down, and the last thing you see will be my blade.
Darn.
While the entire ship has that grey wash on it, there isn't that much colour outside of a few highlights around the bridge, the engine pods of the ship, and this red ring. Most of the paint details go into the aft section here, which has not only extra weathering detail, but also some nice little silver touches. The underside of the ship also receives paint treatment, with more silver highlights and some nice green around the main cargo bay doors. It's some nice extra detailing which may not have been covered by most companies, so it's nice to see that little extra effort put in place here. Serenity comes out of the package with her landing gear down for easy loading and unloading of cargo. However, if you want to keep your Firefly flying, and why wouldn't you, the landing gear are actually removable. A good swift tug at each of the joints, your Firefly class transport is ready to soar on the wind like a leaf.
I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch how I soar.
The landing gear ports are relatively noticeable if you're looking for that detail. However, they're quite unobtrusive, so if you want to have your Firefly hanging to represent flying, they're not going to stand out terribly much, and it preserves the nice line of the ship. Your landing gear do reattach quite easily, and each port holds it nice and firmly, so they're not likely to fall out anytime soon once they're in. As far as scale goes, here's the Serenity with a Funko Game of Thrones figure, which should be approximately the sort of scale that the upcoming Funko Firefly figures will be in. Clearly the scale is nowhere near close. A 6-inch figure towers over the ship, a 3 3/4 inch figure still won't look right, and even a 2.5 inch figure is going to look out of scale. But really, compatible scale was never likely in the first place. Certainly you'll be able to put the Serenity behind your 6-inch Legacy Collection Firefly figures when they come out. You're just going to have to pretend that the Serenity is quite a bit off in the distance.
Wash, we got some local color happening. Grand entrance would not go amiss.
Overall, this is a good mid-priced representation of Serenity. Sure, it's not going to be in scale with your Firefly Legacy Collection figures from Funko, but it's not bad in terms of a reasonably cheap representation of the classic ship. I doubt anyone's going to be buying this for the Yahtzee component, but hey, it's not a bad added bonus for what is essentially a reasonably decent replica of the Serenity. When it comes to the world of Firefly, the spaceships themselves outside of Serenity generally aren't terribly memorable, and we're not likely to see any merchandising of them. So it's great to be able to see the star of the show, the Serenity herself, immortalised in a plastic form and at a price point that people can actually afford. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it's a solid representation of a classic ship. So those are my thoughts on the Yahtzee Firefly edition. It's a good representation of the ship, and probably the best we're going to get at this price point for a long time to come. So what do you think about Firefly, Serenity, the ship, the movie, the TV series, the hat?
Pretty cunning, don't you think?
Man walks down the street in that hat, and people know he's not afraid of anything.
Damn straight.
Let us know in the comments below, like and subscribe for future videos, and we'll see you out there in the verse.
I want to resolve this like civilized men. I'm not threatening you. I'm unarmed. Good.